Okay, everybody, I'm so happy you're here because today we are going to be doing a deep dive into Mars, specifically the Mars retrograde that we are in right now, that we will be in through about the middle of February. That in this moment in time, in December, that we are sort of preparing for, meaning there's a big configuration of events happening in January. And whatever is unfolding in your life and in our lives collectively in December is informing what will happen in January and the invitation that we will all have to step into in January. So, Adam and I thought that it would be very important to come and give you a sense of what's happening with Mars and Mars's cycle, which Adam is a total master of, and he's written books about it, and he specializes in, well, many things, but Mars's cycles is one of the things that he is just very skilled in teaching about and has done deep, deep study around. So I am so excited to be introducing any of you who do not know Adam Gainsbourg to him and his work here today. Adam is a sky astrologer, meaning that he looks not only at the charts, the two-dimensional charts, but he also looks at factors that we can't see in the charts that are only available to us if we're looking at the sky itself. So he's going to talk a little bit about that and why he feels it's so important for any astrologer to really go into eventually, as you're evolving in your chart reading skills. He's also an author. I mentioned he's written many books, so we'll probably be referencing some of those books here today. And he's a teacher. He's an amazing teacher. He's going to be our inner circle teacher for the Capricorn lunar cycle. So any of you inner circle members that get excited about what he's saying here today, you're going to continue on the journey with him in January. And those of you who are not inner circle members, you're still going to get so much value from the podcast here today and get a lot of insights that you need to navigate the lunar cycle, the Capricorn lunar cycle, skillfully and with as much ease and grace as possible. All right. So, Adam, with that said, where do we start? I'm thinking that we maybe start with this idea of sky astrology. And when you're looking at Mars's cycle, what are the factors that you're looking at to make your interpretations of what's happening in the sky?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on. This is great. So to your question, when I say sky astrology, what I'm referring to is the factors of a planet that have arguably just as much influence on an astrologer's interpretation of that planet as anything on the chart. So for example, chart factors would be a planet's sign, a planet's house, its aspects that it might be making or receiving. It might be in a certain decan. It might be in some kind of rulership or detrimental position. But when I talk about sky astrology, I'm speaking about the sky factors. So that means how far or close the planet is to Earth. For example, if everyone watching this could just look at your chart and identify, oh, Venus was very close to Earth, or Venus was very far from Earth, that would start to color and eventually refine and specify your definition or your interpretation of your natal Venus. And that's true for every planet. So how close a planet is to the Earth, how bright a planet is, bright or dim. Was the planet visible before the morning rose, before the sun rose in the morning in the east? Or was a planet visible in the western sky after the sunset? How fast or slow was a planet at the moment in question? And there's others. All of these are what I call the sky factors, and I teach on these. And there's, I think they're pretty cool classes on my website that you can get, about the sky factors. This also, though, Amanda, brings up something really interesting. Most astrology students don't learn for a while, if ever, that two planets on the chart that show to be conjunct, they could be actually very, very far away from each other. And so there's a whole principle of that all conjunctions are not created equally. And so we go into that kind of thing. So I guess what I want to say, the last thing about this sky stuff, Amanda, is that when we're looking at planets through the lens of the sky, the planets become more immediate, intimate. They become less something that we have to go to our minds and kind of work hard to try to figure out what the meaning is somehow intellectually up there. It becomes much more close to home, like you start to feel the meaning or sense the color or the flavor or the emphasis that a planet's Earth proximity gives you that you won't get simply from a planet in rulership or in fall or something like that.
Adam, for those that are like, wow, I'm just kind of getting a handle on aspects and I'm just getting a handle on houses and I'm just like, how do I add more factors to how I'm interpreting? How do students prioritize the order of learning? Because it's hard to learn everything all at once.
Great question, Amanda. My strong suggestion, because I've taught lots of people this, both people in the situation that you're describing, kind of just learning, as well as people well experienced. My strong suggestion is to start with the chart. Get your basics down, the meaning of the 12 signs, the real intimate feeling or sense of each of the planets, the houses, and the aspects. Start there. Get that as your ground as Western people. I'm speaking also here, this strong suggestion is also biased by what we are Western psyche people. If our audience was more third world, not Western people, I would not be saying this. But our kind of cultural biases and strengths and weaknesses start with the chart. Have a great teacher or teachers, great book or books, build your foundation there and then start to bring in the sky. But I do always tell my students, even when you're learning, you're beginning to learn astrology, always go out and look. Get up before the sun rises, stay up long into the night after the sun sets, and just be open. Just be open and write poetry and meditate and journal and dance and sing and paint, like whatever it is to kind of get your creative channels open to that direct connection.
Mm. I had the honor of participating in one of your newer classes where we were feeling into our chart in a different way more in our bodies. And one insight I had, it's basic. It's very simple, but it has actually changed my experience of the lunar cycle each month. I found out that the moon was 3 days before full when I was born. And so I have always noticed that something happens for me around the full moon. I come alive in a different way. There's a lot more creativity. There's a lot more, it's almost like like I get excited, almost like it's Christmas every month. And to make that connection of like, wow, when I look at that moon at this phase, that was the same phase it was at in the moment of my birth. There was just something very fundamentally invigorating and energizing about knowing that and being able to draw that connection. And then to be able to just see how I feel. It's almost like I get to celebrate my birth every month.
Yes,
just
exactly.
from the moon,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I understand what you're saying. And I encourage all of you to continue in this exploration. And if you do feel overwhelmed by it, just remember what Adam's saying, that there's a place to start and then you can continue building. But that's the beautiful thing about astrology. It's like, we get to keep exploring. It's not like you get to end and go, oh, I'm done. Like, I know everything now. let's move on. It just never happens.
Amanda, on your point, every planet's phase with the sun, we each, when we were born, we have a certain, let's say, Mars phase with the sun, and I have a Mercury phase with the sun, and I have a Saturn phase with the sun. That phase with the sun, as I progress in my life, when that phase returns and happens again, it is like we come alive in every single one of our planets. So, and I want to point this out, Amanda, because this is you're beautifully pointing out, this is actually one of probably the most important next dimension to really get. A planet in a sign in a house is one body right there frozen, and we're studying that. But when you start to look at the relationship, in your case, between the sun and the moon, or I'm expanding your example and talking about, let's say, Venus and the sun. Now we're in a relationship, and human beings are deeply, deeply biologically social creatures. So it makes sense in our bodies that when we look up and we see two bodies in a relationship, we're going to sometimes more resonate with in your case, the phase of the moon rather than the position of the moon.
So like the phase of the moon rather than the degree of the moon.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So, and people who start to really get astrology and just find this is not just an intellectual curiosity, but astrology is really a language that they want to learn more, that it speaks deeper than just their intellect. This phase thing, this interrelationship between the two bodies that we call the phases of planets, this takes you into the ability to interpret the chart at a next deeper level.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great example.
It's amazing, Adam. Okay, let's bring this to our understanding of Mars retrograde. We're in it right now. It started on December 7th, right?
Yes, December 6th. Well, it depends on your time zone, but yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And we will be in it till February
23rd.
23rd. Does Mars have shadow periods like Mercury where we consider?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Mars entered the shadow period. I don't have the exact date on that, but Mars will station retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo. And so it will then go back all the way through, it will station direct at 17 of Cancer. So that is a 19 or 19 and a half degree of shadow period. So basically, like you say, from now, well, from the 6th, 7th until the 23rd of February, we will be in a Mars retrograde. And generally, retrograde planets signify not just stuff we have to go back and do over, but they signify deeper blind spots that we have. They're deeper blind spots that I carry in my psyche, in my body. And so when a planet is natally retrograde, that's what it means. When a planet by transit, like now, Mars will station retrograde, any planet that I have in those degrees, so basically from 17 of Cancer through 6 of Leo, and then the degrees opposite that, so 17 of Capricorn through 6 of Aquarius, and any planet square to those, and any planet and any other planet trine to them, even angles, the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and low heaven, all will get affected by what? By this retrograding Mars. So what does that mean? Actions, Mars, that we took in the past, even if they seem to have had a positive outlook, a positive result, I mean, in the 3D, we might be surprised that things come back on us and we have to cross our T's and dot our I's, or the lottery people call us and say, sorry, you didn't win that $1 million. It was someone else. Or something happens or occurs where you need to go back and rethink, revisit, or even more deeply, to deeply question, where was I doing that action from? So we may be surprised at any Mars retrograde period that we find ourselves going slower. We may not want to be, just like we always say in Mercury retrograde period, you don't want to sign contracts. But in Mars retrograde period, you don't want to make action steps quite yet. You want to really suss out where you're coming from in your motivation, because Mars is the planet in astrology that represents motivation itself. And then Moon is the emotional motivation. Mercury is the intellectual motivation, the curiosity motivation. Jupiter might be said to be the truth motivation, the personal path motivation. But Mars is motivation itself. It is nothing but just, it is life force or energy or the universal energy just coming into form, just action. And that's why Mars generally represents things like separating, things like battling, winning, speed, overcoming. Mars loves a challenge. The really dumb joke I make to my students is, Mars hates to go backwards the most of all the planets. But if Mars is forced to go backwards, he loves going fast backwards. And that's what's going to happen uh, around the 19th or the 20th, around the solstice, essentially, is when this year, when Mars is going to really start to pick up speed, retrograde. And this is maybe a good thing for students here to remember. Any outer planet, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, etc., when they are opposite the sun, they are at their fastest retrograde speed. They are also close. So when Mars is opposite the sun, closest to us, that will be on January 16th. Mars will be at 26 degrees of Cancer retrograde. Okay? So when that happens, Amanda, I've done a lot of work trying to bring out a very balanced and objective view of Mars and the masculine in astrology circles. And what I found is this is the period of masculine transformation. Mars opposite the sun, closest to Earth. And what I mean by that is this is where the sacred masculine principle in all women and all men and all non-gender identified individuals, that whatever name we call it, the masculine quality of us inside, this is when it is fully closest to us, where we see nakedly, where we get reflections in mirrors, and the universe manifests things in our life to show us our current relationship with our inner sacred masculine self. And so it's really important that we pay attention and that we are mature students in the school whenever Mars goes retrograde and opposes the sun like this, because it's very easy to just kind of gloss it off and go, oh, that was just a one-time thing. There's nothing really here for me in terms of growth or change or lessons I need to learn. Whatever's showing up right in that 3-day window. So I would say it's, from the 14th of January through the 17th of January is when we really want to pay attention. And I've even had students, or I've even given assignments to a couple students in the past where I said, listen, I want you to keep a candle going for for the full 72 hours of these 3 days. If you can find a red candle, great. And you just make prayers, or you state your intentions that I'm going to be the source of my own action, Mars. I'm going to be sovereign, Mars. I'm not going to settle for solutions that are less than what I ask and what I require and what I want in my life. I'm going to raise the bar of how much I can act honestly and fully on my own behalf and not rely on others. This is a lot. I know, I'm giving like a lot to people here. We only have like a little short time here. And a lot of times, unfortunately, students will hear rather myopic and limited things about Mars, but Mars is just as progressive, is just as necessary for our full awakening and happiness and success in life as Venus or the sun is. So I like to be kind of a voice of this. Definitely, Mars has its shadow side, has its negativity, has its darkness. And so, looking at this Mars retrograde period in comparison to your birth chart would be the way to find out really where this is going to be most prominent in your life. Planets there, what house it's happening in.
Adam, I'm really grateful that you're speaking up for Mars, because I also feel that whenever Mars is, not whenever, this is definitely an overstatement, in general, it gets a bad rap. Like it's rarely spoken about in positive terms, and it to me, I feel it reflects our just our misunderstanding of the role of the healthy masculine energy in our personal lives and in the world. And so I'm grateful that you're bringing it in. Can I ask a question here?
Of course.
About this idea. So first of all, everybody, this is what I'm going to do right after this recording. I'm going to go to my calendar. I'm going to mark off January 14th through 17th. I'm going to put some of these key words that Adam just said in terms of what we're going to be faced with in the mirror at this time. So whatever storylines are unfolding, whatever's coming up, being able to keep some of these ideas in mind, I think will really help us to make the most of this period of time you're talking about. So January 14th to the 17th, mark it in your calendar. Okay. You said keep a candle going. I love that. Make prayers, state intentions. Now, some of the things you said to state intentions around is our own sovereignty, is raising the bar on how much we can act honestly and fully on our own behalf and to not rely on others. Okay. My question is right here. We're so interdependent.
Yes.
So where is that? I'm independent and I can fend for myself and I can rely on myself and I'm
right.
a sovereign human being. And yet I'm not really. Like I need other people in my life. So
Gotcha.
What does that look like in a healthy way?
Gotcha. Beautiful question, Amanda. So insightful. So for everyone, there are essentially two independent spectrums, ranges in a human being psyche with which we use the word dependence or independence. The first is where we're coming from in our relationships with all beings. Where are we coming from in our relationship with our family, our friends, our colleagues, our teachers, our students, our religious leaders, whatever? Where are we coming from in there? The other range is how are we relating with each group? So, for example, generally, the developmental or the evolutionary progress in a human being goes like this. As a child, we're completely dependent on parents. Then we start to differentiate ourselves. We still have dependency on the parent, but we are different than them. Then we discover, Carl Jung, thank you, individuation, and we start to become independent. And that lasts for a good, at least decade and a half, 2 decades. Now we're independent who we are. And as that independence grows and grows, guess what? Interdependent. How, wow, I'm really relying on the bank to do the right thing and my spouse to pick up the kids when I need to, and all that. But once that is met, the interdependence is met with non-reactivity, once I can embrace and accept that, wow, I can't do this all alone. I need my tribe. And even more than that, I want tribe. There's a desire in me to be with community of like mind, like heart, like souls. Once that happens, then it gets into what I call co-independence, where now my continuing evolution and discovery of myself and your continuing independence and discovery of yourself, even though they might be slightly going in different ways in some areas of our life, we are totally supportive of each other. We can be selfless. We can put down our stuff to really be there for the other person. So what I'm trying to say here is that true independence is never at the exclusion of any other being. It's a stage where we think, I'm independent. I do my own thing. I act upon the world. That's necessary for a time. But if you keep growing and evolution or maturation doesn't stop, you eventually realize I do require so much support, both seen and unseen. And when that starts to occur, my independence actually, like the ceiling kind of melts and we start to grow. And that's where more like deep compassion and spirituality and a connection to like a cosmos kind of experience can happen. Is that making sense?
Absolutely. And what I'm hearing is that what evolves is where we're anchored in our interdependence, meaning we start to be interdependent on things beyond this third dimensional reality, beyond just the bank, beyond just who's president, beyond, there's an acknowledgement that we're not acting alone and we're not interdependent, but it's just seated somewhere different.
Exactly, Amanda. Exactly. And I would say further, I totally agree. I would even extend that set of characteristics you just said. We are more than just our emotional security. We're more than just the belief that I know what I actually believe. We're more than the confidence or the emotional security I get from knowing who I am. And the reason I'm only bringing this up, Amanda, is when Mars goes transcendence phase, does the opposite to the sun, closest to Earth. During the transcendence phase is a time amongst all the other planets when we can have this kind of transcendent type of experience that literally that goes beyond our normal sense of reality and the personal identity. And we can be very challenged with that or by that when we have experiences that we can't make sense of immediately. But this is, for me, because I've been doing this a while, this is really what astrology is ultimately in service to. It's not in service to continuing to reify my egocentric identity and my emotional tapes from the past. It really is about challenging and then eventually changing in the direction of my own purpose of being here.
This is reminding me of what so many astrologers are saying about the energy of 2025 and 2026.
Oh, so much, Amanda.
Right?
Oh,
I mean, we're really like having to expand and almost completely move beyond our ideas of who we thought we were and what we thought our lives were about, that there's going to be so much change in a concentrated period of time, that being more comfortable through these phases of, wow, like I don't even know anymore. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing, but trusting in something that is unfolding behind that.
yes.
It sounds to me like that is going to be one of the most key things for us to keep in mind as we're going through time. And I just want to take one moment to say this, and we'll come back to Mars retrograde. And I'm going to put you on the spot here. But for those of you who are loving Adam's perspective, he is going to be one of the panelists on our free 2025 forecast event, which is happening in just a couple of days. So if you're happening to catch this episode before December 13th, you can come and experience this event live. If you're coming a little bit late, you still might be able to access the recordings. So go to astrologyhub.com/2025 forecast to reserve your free spot. But so in that, we're going to be unpacking 2025 in a really amazing way with 6 different astrologers. But I'm going to put you on the spot. And if you had to give us kind of an overarching energy of 2025, with all of this in mind, all these things that we've talked about, what would you say it is? What's 2025 all about?
It is getting very deeply, sometimes vulnerably honest with yourself in how much of your past and your history that you will be carrying forward into the future. Because the more of my history that I carry into the future, the less psychic and body space I have to actually be receptive to what's new. Not just that new is greater and better than the old, but new means there's possibility to further my growth. The more an individual furthers their growth, the more contributive they become to the overall unfolding of humanity and the planet and human consciousness. So I see this as kind of a sacred entrustment that all human beings have. Obviously, most of us on the planet are not living this right now. But said in a different way, Amanda, 2025 is how much am I still consciously and unconsciously relying on external factors, people, environments, homes, things, to tell me that I'm safe and that I'm good. That is a huge theme for 2025. It's the discovery, and hopefully sometimes it's going to be shocking for some people, how much I am dependent, like unhealthily dependent on external factors for my sovereignty, for my creative passion, for my interest, for my ability to be selfless and to be helpful and to really commit to causes that impassion me. If I keep hitting the wall or the limit in my ability to help others, there's something that I'm holding on to about myself subconsciously that I'm not willing to look at or let go of yet. So I think 2025 is that. It's reconciling to how much of the past. And Amanda, I use astrology to go very, very deep into like very deep transformative spaces. And those deep spaces often open up very, very high transcendent spaces in a person's consciousness. When I say one's past, I'm not just talking about this life. I'm talking about what's called the epigenetic predisposed behavior patterns that we inherited from our ancestors, beginning with our parents. How much of our racial memory, our genetic memory, our cultural memory are we kind of carrying somewhat without full awareness? That's what I mean. I think 2025 is going to do that. And I might be a little biased because I'm the Capricorn astrologer, the Capricorn lunar month astrologer for the IC, which is all about the history and honoring it and teachers and elders and all those beautiful things. But with this Mars retrograde happening also, the Mars opposite the sun right there in January, and Mars will oppose Pluto right there in January. If we don't have our eyes open in January to like even little tickles of things, I maybe need to pay attention to this, or I don't really know why I'm doing this, but I just feel like this needs to happen, and I don't have an exact reason why. That will set us up for the whole 2025, the rest of the year, in good stead. One of the ways that I characterize, that I chime in with all the other astrologers you mentioned who are saying kind of the same thing, is human consciousness is evolving. And by definition, because of where we come from biologically and historically, we have to be cleaning up our relationship to our past. This means dealing with the places in us where we are still resenting, the places in us where we are still turning away from our own power and our beauty and our sexiness and our gorgeousness and our incredible skill and genius about things, certain things. If we don't deal with the past, the future is going to be very, very kind of reiterative of what we've already created. In other words, we won't let the bright and shininess of the new Aquarian age to really inspire us, because it's always going to come through the filter of the emotional past, the physical past, physical aches and pains in our body that have lasted forever, organ problems, conditions that we've never really gotten to the bottom of. This is all what 2025 for me needs to be. Is that making sense?
It makes so much sense. And it is, it reminds me of, okay, when we went through the election in November, before it, I had a moment with myself where I said, regardless of the outcome of this election, I'm committed to staying true to my path, whatever that means. And it sounds to me like there's a lot of different things that you're saying here. There's going to be continual external factors happening, unfolding. We will get to see where we've been unhealthfully dependent on those external factors to dictate how we're showing up for our lives, how much we're contributing our gifts, how much we will stay committed to our own unfolding and path. In addition to that, we're going to get to see where we're still carrying things from our ancestry, our lineage, our past, regardless of where that past originates. But that there's also an opportunity to really clean those things up. And that when we do that, we're really opening up for more and more capacity, for more and more of our gifts to come online, for more and more of our contributions to be made. And so it's really just, to me, whenever you guys say these things, you guys, meaning you astrologers, say these epically amazing, like mind-blowing, expansive things, I like to find something I can anchor in, where it's like, okay, I don't know what that's going to mean or look like. I don't know what the storyline's going to be. But what I can do is commit to being present to these things that they're saying, these thematic lines. I can anchor in those. And what I hear is just massive change beyond what we can imagine. And really that in this moment, we're almost like preparing the space for it. And what do we do when we start a new garden? We need to weed. We need to prepare the soil. We need to give it time. We need to not rush through it, all these things. And so, we can keep these things in mind as we go into 2025, right? Is there anything that I missed or like said not the way you would have said it?
No, that's great. But I want to add even more specificity. Two things. If people listening and watching this really, if this is landing for you, there's two things you can do to put into action in your own way, in your own life, what I'm trying to convey here. The first is go into your heart and really get honest and open to, is there anything in the relationship with both your parents that you can clear up, that you can forgive, that you can let go of? I mean, genuinely let go of, not just go, yes, I forgive you, next. Like really meet that in your heart. So that's the first. Because if I can clear everything or many things with my parents, a lot of that will clear some of the ancestral stuff that I'm also carrying through them. So that's the first. Look at what your relationship is with your parents, and it doesn't matter. They don't even have to be in a body anymore. They could have passed out many years ago, but we're still carrying that relationship if it's unresolved. That's the first. The second is anything that you have not forgiven or loved about yourself. Anything, or I mean, yourself, therefore others, but it always comes back to yourself. Anything that you are withholding forgiveness about, where there's still a little bit of resentment. Those are two tangible things you can just put on your calendar, your journal right now. Say, one of my intentions for 2025, here it is. Just to be open and available for when the next thing I get a little ping from my life about yeah, I still have a little grudge, or wow, I have a lot of anger, or oh, I'm still so like sorrowful about something. I just have to like eventually get into why that is, what I'm holding on to, and work to let it go. That's how to let go of the past in a very tangible way.
That is very tangible, very actionable. Okay. Let's go back to Mars retrograde and just wrap up the Mars retrograde storyline. So you brought up quickly that Mars is going to be opposing Pluto at one point. What is the date on that?
Yes, Mars opposes Pluto exactly on January 3rd.
Okay, so we're kicking off the year.
The whole year with Mars at 1 degree of Leo, opposite Pluto 1 degree of Aquarius. And also on that day, the Moon and Venus conjoin at 0.5 Pisces. So this new year, just purely from the astrological symbolism, and like for everybody watching this, I am not a predictive astrologer. I do not generally do that. For clients or in classes, I don't practice mundane astrology. I'll elect some things because I know how to do that, but I'm not predicting anything here. Okay, but Mars conjunct Pluto, Mars opposite Pluto, in the fixed axis of Leo Aquarius. Actions taken may seem in the moment justified and like righteous, that later turn out or revealed to be with a definitely other agenda behind it. Yeah, Mars Pluto aspects can be very violent. They can be destructive. They can be where we are the receivers, act against us, attacking. And also, at the same breath, Mars Pluto aspects can equally be events in our lives in which we discover how strong we are, how true to our truth, that we're not giving in to the baser motivations of humanity, like kill or be killed, or take, or fear-based actions and words. Mars Pluto can show us basically how deep our goodness goes, our strength goes. This is where the Mars battle cry is, but it's not battle to overcome and kill an enemy now. It's a battle cry to stay in integrity to one's heart, to one's soul, and not give in to the darkness around us. It's both. Remember, guys, all astrological transits mean multiple things within what we might call the positive, things what we might call in the negative manifestation of them equally. So when I'm rebelling against injustice, I can rebel from a victim place, or I can rebel from an empowered place inside of me. The action can be the same. It's most important where I'm coming from when I rebel, when I speak out, when I walk away from dysfunction, when I stand up for love or for truth or for goodness. It's where I'm coming from in me. And again, that goes back to the resentment, forgiveness from the past. If I'm not forgiven, if I haven't forgiven myself or others, I'm going to carry that, and that's going to start to color and lower the frequency of my motivation sometimes in what I do and say.
Wow. Okay, Adam, I'm so grateful that we get to continue this conversation with you in the inner circle, and that we're going to get to live through these events with you in the inner circle. Like, this is amazing. It's epic. Can you tell us a little, tell our inner circle members a little bit about the mastery class that you're going to be teaching during your lunar cycle?
Because I can be long-winded, I am actively exercising the ability to be succinct. So
Okay, great.
I've learned over many years that the more I learned about the sky, the deeper and more honest I went into my body. There is a correlation, guys, in astrology between sky astrology and inhabiting your body more, which ultimately really just means finding more self-love, self-acceptance, self-joy, self-humor, humility, and a lot of fun, a lot more fun, ease, and grace. So that's the backdrop of this. My mastery class for the IC will be a version of a new body of work that I just came out with in the fall of this year called My Chart is in My Body, which is a way of directly experiencing my planets on my chart, but deep in my heart and deep in almost like the tissues of my body. So I've learned that when we do this, the mind gets access to a whole other level of wisdom and insight and intuition than just taking in information through the left brain and processing it and intuiting it through the right, having some great new insight and great new intellectual offering. When that information comes and it goes into the fabric of what makes us uniquely human, our physical body, it's like we're enhanced, we're enfullened in what we know, in our wisdom. So, and I have a series of techniques we're going to go through in the mastery class using the main planets of our chart.
Amazing. Okay, can't wait for that. Can't wait for you to be on the panel on Friday, to have all these opportunities to dance and play with you. It's so brilliant to have you back on the platform. It's been a little bit, we had a little pause,
Yes.
But now you're back and I'm just so happy. Adam, is there anything you want to say to us at this point, mid-December, that something that we can keep in mind as we're moving into the new year? Anything else that you haven't already said? Because you've already given us so much.
Oh, thank you. And yeah. Okay. Here in December, I would really encourage everyone to look at the Venus series, CERES. This is one of the dwarf planets in our solar system. Venus series Pluto conjunction, the stellium, as the most important transit in all of 2024 for rediscovering self-nurturance. When I say self-nurturance, what I mean is taking responsibility, finally, that every part of my experience is coming from within me. It is not being done to me. So Venus conjunct Ceres conjunct Pluto is the astrological planetary playing out of the Demeter myth, where Demeter, or Ceres, who represented the abundance of the whole earth, and her daughter Persephone loved each other, had the perfect mother-daughter relationship. They were separated. The mother freaked out, got super angry, and then withheld life from the earth, and everything started to wither. Why? Because the daughter was tricked into the underworld, Pluto. So Venus, Persephone, Ceres, Demeter, Ceres, and Pluto, Hades, is playing out now at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And so what is 2025 kind of doing for us? What's the whole year really about for you? 2025, remember the past, what I'm holding on to, what I can let go of now, what I can embrace now, is being set up by this thing in right now in December. And this will have long lasting effects in, I think, in collective, even society. I think how people feel not taken care of, how people feel taken advantage of, how people react to discovering they've been lied to, how people respond to really being taken care of. Like I was just reading this report recently that there was, I think it was in West Virginia, some really, really skilled workers just after the whole huge storm went through and just demolished like interstate highways in West Virginia. They didn't bother waiting for the government to approve and sign all the papers. They just got in there, and for like 5-6 days, they brought in all their heavy machinery, all their connections, and they literally remade the highways for people. They just did it on their own dime. They didn't wait for all the regulations and waiting for the government to send me my Social Security check. And I can't do that because I haven't had approval yet. They just went in and for them did the right thing. That's what I'm talking about 2025. We starting in 2024 here. We take responsibility now for the reality and the community that we want to live in.
Wow. And what's beautiful about that example is that couldn't have happened if they didn't work together. Like no one person could have done that on their own. They had to come together, make that decision, and then actually take action. That's a gorgeous example. And we keep seeing that when there's crises in different places. Here on Maui, over and over, when there's a crisis, humans come together. And Georgia, Stathis, and I were marveling, like, why can't we just do that without the crisis? Like, why can't we just do that? And maybe that is something that's coming through this time, is like you've been talking about. I hope you all have been taking notes and that you'll listen to this several times, because there are so many gems, like in every single sentence. And I really feel like we have so much to work with, and so much invitation for December, for January, for the entire year ahead that's astrologically informed. And I love that you're bringing in it. To me, it feels like astrology is going to continue to evolve. And this element of the sky factors is going to become more important in the way that we're viewing the invitation from these incredible beings that are our allies, that are constantly transmitting information. There's a constant broadcast that we can become more and more available to. And it seems like you're bringing in a really important component of that evolution, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us through this. I hope that you'll join us for the December 13th free 2025 forecast panel event. If you are not an Inner Circle member yet, I just want to plant the seed that this coming weekend, we are going to be having a very quick promotional period where you can lock in membership at 50% off the normal rate. That will come and go, so be ready for it. The promotional period opens on Friday, December 13th. It will end on Sunday. So if you want to hop in, this would be a great time to do it. You'll also be hopping in right in time for Adam to be your Inner Circle astrologer. Well, you'll get the tail end of Andrea Michelle, who is also incredible. She's also another sky astrologer. She brings in so many of these elements as well. And we're already having an incredible lunar cycle with her. So you'll get some elements of her and her entire retrograde planets mastery class. Plus, you'll get to enjoy Adam as your teacher through some of this critical astrology. I mean, it sounds like a critical moment in time.
It is.
So I can't think of a better guide to have with us. So to join the free panel event, astrologyhub.com/2025 forecast, to join the Inner Circle, just stay tuned. Make sure you're a part of our mailing list, astrologyhub.com/insider. We'll get you on our free mailing list, and then you'll be the first to know when that's happening. And also we'll drop the links from Adam's, the different things that he brought up during today's podcast. We'll drop those links in the show notes as well as his website. So if you want to continue following Adam and his work, you can do that too. Adam, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for you, for the work that you do, for the commitment to astrology, to teaching, to writing, to just being present to your gifts and contributing those gifts to all of us. We are grateful. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity, Amanda. It's great to connect with you again.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Want more? Make sure you're signed up for our Cosmic Insider newsletter. It's free, delivered every Monday, includes links to all the episodes, plus you'll get a heads up on the cosmic weather ahead. Just go to astrologyhub.com/insider. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to help us reach more astrology lovers like you. And finally, follow us on socials. You can find us on Instagram, X, TikTok, or Facebook for daily astrological guidance. See you soon.